So in this video, we're going to look at 5 different people who got married to the dead. Some of them deliberately, most of them rather forcefully, and in some, well, they had no option. At number 5, in May of 2018, a 19-year-old girl by the name of Confidence Nwanma was stabbed to death by her boyfriend, 24-year-old Ladayo, in Akure, Ondo State, after she had laid a curse on him. You see, what happened between Ladayo and Confidence was something that is common. Confidence had heard from a group of her friends or from around that her boyfriend Ladayo was asking another girl out, and Confidence immediately confronted Ladayo, asking him if it was true. Ladayo denied that he never asked any other girl out and that she was still the one. But Confidence had her doubts. She did not believe him, and clearly she was in love. And upon her suspicion, she decided to lay a curse on him, saying that if Ladayo ever slept with another girl, or if he had ever slept with another girl while they were dating, he would never succeed in anything he does in this life. And this curse or these words triggered Ladayo. Obviously, Confidence was in the heat of the moment. She was angry. She believed the rumors. She believed Ladayo was sleeping around. She believed Ladayo was asking another girl out. And that was what prompted her to lay the curse that she did. Obviously, or maybe so to make Ladayo come clean and admit that, he had done so or he was doing so. But Ladayo took this course differently. He was furious and began demanding that Confidence takes it back, in which Confidence refused. Confidence said she was not taking the course back, but Ladayo continued pressuring her, and this led to a fight, which in turn led Ladayo to stabbing Confidence. Before they could rush her to the hospital, she had lost her life. Confidence was dead, and Ladayo was arrested. The case was taken to the right authorities, but the family of Confidence needed more than just justice for their daughter. To them, justice was not Ladayo facing jail term. Justice was Ladayo coming to do what's right by Confidence, making her a married woman upon her death. The family of Confidence Nwanma wanted Ladayo to do all the rights of a marriage for the late girl. They wanted him to come pay the bride price, and they wanted him to pay it in double, saying that he brought their daughter home dead. They planned that she was going to be taken to her father's house and she would be dressed in a wedding gown in her casket, while Ladayo would be dressed in a suit. He would put a ring in her fingers, pay all the necessary bride price, and fulfill every marital rights for the young girl. Afterwards, would she be laid to rest. At the time of the story back then in 2018, nothing was said if Ladayo proceeded with getting married to the dead girl's body. But the parents of the girl were very vocal on the press. They were very certain that that was what they needed. No matter what the court's rules regarding Ladayo killing Confidence, they needed Ladayo to come and perform the marital rites of their late daughter. And as if that was not enough, it was also stated that the family of the late girl also placed a pending curse on the family of Ladayo, that if Ladayo's family refused to allow their son, given that Ladayo is Yoruba and Confidence Nwama is Igbo, the family of the girl claimed that if Ladayo's parents refused to let their son perform the marital rites, calamities will befall them, and a lot of their children will not live past the age of their daughter who had died at just 19. Although it wasn't officially reported that Ladayo eventually performed the marital rites of the late girl, but I can guess maybe he did. Because subsequently, as we go on to check the list of 5 people who got married to the dead, it seems as though it is a better option than going to jail for killing the young girl. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think Ladayo should have gotten married to Confidence, or do you think it was just too much for a young girl at 19? And what do you think about the curses placed on Ladayo? I think these were just young children who did not think too much of it. 19 years old girl placing a curse on a 24-year-old boy. Obviously, he took it serious, but I don't think there was much weight to it. It shouldn't have escalated the way it did. It shouldn't have. It's unclear if Ladayo is still in prison, but there's a high chance that he most likely is. Or if he's out of prison, there's a chance that he did most likely perform the marital rites of the late girl that he had killed. Number 4. In 2017, a Ghanaian man was traditionally forced to perform the marital rites of a woman he lived with for 9 years. The unnamed man was said to have been living with the said woman from what started as a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship until she got pregnant and had a first child. This clearly fostered their bond because now there's a baby in the mix. And seeing that they were not very financially buoyant individually, it was cheaper and obviously more profitable for them to continue living together. Although it was said that the man had planned multiple times to meet the girl's parents long before she even got pregnant. but they never seem to have had the time, or he never seemed to have enough money to go and do the marital rights of the lady. So he kept postponing, he kept pushing it, he kept saving up for it until eventually she got pregnant and gave birth to the first child. And now, with the baby in the mix, things are only going to get expensive. But apparently, they continued living together and they continued living as a couple. However, sometime in 2017, she got pregnant again. But this time, the childbirth was going to be difficult. According to the story, while she was giving birth, she lost her life. It's not clear if the baby survived. It was said the woman lost her life in the process. Now, this is when the man decided that he was finally going to see the girl's parents, because at this point, there was no option. He needed to inform them that their daughter had died, and he sort of had to bring the girl's body home for burial. And interestingly, this is where things got very tricky, because they said he did not even know the way to the girl's family home. He did not know the way to the girl's house. On his way to see her people, he got lost. It took him a while to find the girl's village, and when he did, that was the story he was giving to them, that the daughter that he had been living with for 9 years and had gotten pregnant twice had died. Obviously, it was a sad news for the girl's parents, and a burial ceremony was held for her immediately. I'm pretty sure the girl had relatives who knew him and who knew about her situation. It wasn't like she was a runaway bride who eloped. She did live with the man, and relatives who knew her knew him, and it wasn't suddenly that she disappeared for 9 years. They were in touch with her and they were most likely aware of her situation. However, what they were just not comfortable with was the fact that she lived with this man for 9 whole years and had a child for him or children for him, and he never for once thought of coming to see her parents, paying her dowry, or doing what was necessary and important for her to be his wife, only for him to come 9 years later with her dead body. Initially, it was said the family of the girl did not think too much of it, but it was during the burial ceremony that the elders and the relative thought that something was just off. They were just upset at the whole situation. They were upset at the fact that this man had been with their daughter for 9 years and never thought to come and see them, only for him to come when she had passed. It was in that instant that they suggested that he got married to her. He was going to put rings in her finger and do every single marital rite that was necessary. Even though he didn't have the money, the family and the relatives were willing to, make up for those things. Because on the day of the funeral, the man was still dressed in his mourning wear. He was still wearing his black and black mourning attire for people who had lost a loved one. So he wasn't exactly dressed for marriage like most of the stories we would see. A lot of the times when the man is getting married to the deceased woman, he is dressed like he was going for a wedding. But for this particular Ghanaian story, the man was said to still be wearing his crying clothes. Some sources had it that the woman was dressed in a wedding gown and the man was given 2 rings to put in her fingers as the marriage ceremony was conducted for him and the deceased woman. The man on his own was not reluctant to getting married to the woman. This is a woman he had lived with and loved for 9 years. If this was what was needed to do right by her, he was happy to do it. But someone was not happy about this, and that was the man's mother. Sources had it that she was upset that her son had to get married to a dead woman. It did not make sense to her. She was irritated by it. She was just annoyed by the whole idea, and she was very expressive of it.
Auntie for Aishitu did not go through such an experience. Her son did. Her son, like Kwesi Bekwai, had to put 2 rings on the finger of the dead woman he once lived with. The anguish in her voice could be felt from a distance. He made us wed her while she was leaving the States. He put rings on her finger, presented some money. It is a wish that such a practice is abolished and a different measure is adopted to deal with situations such as these.
But people had comments. Some people were like, what if the reverse was the case? What if it was her daughter who had been taken home by a man for 9 years and only to be brought back dead? Wouldn't she want the daughter to at least be done right by, even if it means the man would have to do certain marital ceremony? Besides, she did live with him and perform the duties of a wife for him for free without doing anything. It's like somebody working as a security man for years without you even calling them your security man. You're still there calling them your best friend, or you're still there calling them a friend. Whereas they did the job of a security man, they did the job of a protector, they did the job of what you refuse to tag them as. It's like somebody ruling the country and you are still refusing to call the person the president. It's the same thing as this woman being a wife to this man, cleaning, cooking, feeding him, carrying his babies for 9 whole years, and he did not think it was right to make her a wife. Obviously, this was some of the comments that a lot of the people brought to the mother of the man who got married to the dead woman. She was upset by it, but people were like, she should put herself in the shoes of the family of the deceased girl who played a wife for this man for 9 years, but was never regarded or referred to as a wife legally. Number 3, in 2011, the story of a final year student of Lagos State University who died during a sex marathon in her boyfriend's house in Ejibo went viral. The deceased, by the name of Chinyere Ezeala, was known to always paying her boyfriend, Ifeanyi, a visit every weekend at his place in Ejibo, and by the end of the weekend, she'd go back to school in Lasun. However, in a weekend in December of 2011, Chinyere paid, as usual, a visit to her boyfriend, Ifeanyi. But something happened one night and she did not wake up. It was said this may have happened on a Saturday night, but it was on a Sunday morning that Ifeanyi discovered that Chinyere did not wake up. He was the one who went to inform the police, and by the time the police came, Chinyere was found only tied in wrapper, which made authorities and people around believe that they may have just finished having sex when she passed. And that was how the story of a marathon sex was the cause of her death. It's still not confirmed if marathon sex was what killed her, but that was the story at the time. It was funny to a lot of people. You know how the press and the media and the blogs will, make this story a big deal. But for Ifeanyi, it was so much more than just a joke. When the police came, Chinyere's body was evacuated and taken for autopsy. Ifeanyi was, however, arrested and put in custody as a suspect. Obviously, he is the boyfriend, and obviously, he will be the number one suspect. She died in your house, naked, with just wrapper that we believed he was the one who tied around her so that, people don't come and see her naked. The story soon got to Chinyere's family, who just learned that their daughter had died, interestingly or bizarrely, from a so-called marathon sex. And when they did meet Ifeanyi in the police station, they were upset at this whole situation. They were upset at the story. Meanwhile, the police were investigating. They were trying to get the autopsy for the young girl to see if indeed marathon sex was what killed her. But it was most likely not that, or maybe complications of something that she was dealing with, or maybe she was sick. While the police were going by their investigation, the family of Chinyere were already done and over it. In fact, they wanted it to be done fast. And they gave Ifeanyi a proposition. Given that Ifeanyi is Igbo and Chinyere is Igbo, this would not be so much of a problem, because it is believed that in some Igbo community, when a woman passes in the hands of a man or someone she lived with for that long, and the man never got to meet her people, the posthumous marriages is usually recommended. And so for this Chinyere's case, her family met with Ifeanyi's family and told them that they are willing to drop the case, they are willing to drop all the charges, they are willing to not pursue a criminal lawsuit against Ifeanyi over the death of their daughter, if only Ifeanyi would be willing to make a wife out of their deceased daughter. They agreed that he was going to wear suit, he was going to go to the village of the girl, pay her dowries double, get everything, all the necessary marital rights, all the things that he would have to buy, in order to make a marriage ceremony. He was going to do all of that and put a ring in her fingers before she is buried. And if he did all of these, he would not go to jail. And this, like I said, unlike the first story that we did, was a good idea. A young girl dies in your house, you either go to jail for 10, 20 years, or you get married to her dead body. Which would you take? Ifeanyi's family were very quick to accept this offer. They did not waste time. In fact, if they had probably waited for the autopsy or the police investigation, it might turn out to be in favor of Ifeanyi, because maybe she may have died from something else that he did not directly cause. And that way, he would not even need to get married to the dead girl. But Ifeanyi did not want to take any chances. The family of Ifeanyi did not want to take any chances. They did not trust the system, and so they took the offer to marry the dead girl and let their son go free. It was a good offer. It was the best option they could get at this point. And so they took it. Ifeanyi eventually did what was right by Chinyere, got married to her, and Chinyere was buried, and he got his freedom. Interesting. But I would like to hear your thoughts on this. If a young lady passes in your care and you faces the possibility of going to jail, and the only way out of it is if the family of the girl gave you the option to marry her dead body, would you rather marry the dead body of the person you killed, or would you rather go to jail for the person you killed? Which would you do if you were to trade, or if you were to trade freedom for getting married to a dead body? That is to say, if your freedom is dependent on you getting married to a dead girl, would you take it, or would you rather go to jail? Let me know in the comments below. What would you do if you were in a fine situation? Would you have said, you know what, F that shit, I'm not going to marry this dead girl, let the investigation continue and let me go to jail? Or would you be like, you know what, the chances of going 2, 3, 4, 10 years in jail over marrying a dead girl, nah, I will take getting married to a dead girl. Which would you do? Would you marry a dead girl to get your freedom, or would you rather save time than to do that? Let me know your thoughts. Personally, for me, for the case of Ifeanyi, I think, like I've already said, if he had waited for the investigation to conclude, and if he was found guilty or wanting, or if he was found culpable in her murder, then I would take that offer. But it did not look like he killed her directly. It's not like the first story or the other stories where they killed the girl. This girl just happens to have passed in his house. So I feel like his chances were high if he had waited. But if indeed there was something he did to have caused her death, I can see a reason why he would take the offer. And if I was in a situation and there was something I did to cause her death that can land me in jail or make me do time, maybe I would consider getting married to the girl after the fact. But that's just me. Let me know your thoughts. Now for our number 2 story of a man who got married to a dead girl. I think we've done this one before on its own individual story. I think it's somewhere in our page. In February of 2021, a pastor invited his fiancée to his house after she had informed him that she was pregnant. He made it seem like this was one of those congratulatory, celebratory instances where he's like, oh wow, my baby, you're pregnant. But this was something much more than that. In fact, this was something much worse than that. The pastor went on to lace the girl's drink to get her medicated, get her intoxicated, get her weak, get her just unconscious. And after she fell unconscious, he proceeded to carry out an abortion on her without her consent. Pastor Emeka Sunday was a reputable man of God who was also called a reverend in a popular church in Owerri, while his fiancée, Chioma Okoye, was a, working class young lady who also lived in Owerri too at the time. It's not clear if they lived together, but given the story, there's a chance she lived in her own place and he lived in his own place. It was said that Pastor Emeka and Chioma had been dating for 5 years prior to 2021 when this tragedy happened. It was in 2020 that he proposed to her and, they began the marriage arrangement. Somewhere along the line, Chioma revealed to him that she was pregnant. Now, as a pastor, this did not look good for his image, because in his church, before you get married, they would have to test the bride and see if she's pregnant. And if she's pregnant, it is one of those, rules in the church where if you're pregnant, you can't get married, or they'll make it a blessing of marriage, or it will be seen as some kind of situation. The bottom line is, Chioma getting pregnant just did not look good for him. And maybe he was one of those pastors who also preached against this, given that he was a senior pastor. Maybe he was one of those pastors who criticized other people who got pregnant before they got married. And now that he's trying to get married, his fiancée is pregnant. Obviously, this was not good for Pastor Emeka. Sources had it that he had reached out to her and begged her to abort the pregnancy herself and wait till they get married before she can take him. I think he should have thought of that before sleeping with her without a condom. But, let's blame the woman, obviously. It is possible that Chioma refused to take the pregnancy off because she wanted the child herself. So obviously, as Chioma has refused to take away the pregnancy, she was willing to go on with the marriage regardless. She was willing to do whatever it takes to keep the pregnancy and still get married to the man that she had been engaged to. But Pastor Emeka had other mischievous plans. And so, in one of these days, somewhere in February of 2021, he invited her over to his house and gave her a drink and Seemed as though they were talking about the whole pregnancy issue when all of a sudden she slumped and fell unconscious. He took her to a hospital, pretending that something had happened to her, that she was unconscious, but he had already made plans with the doctor to get rid of the pregnancy. At first, the doctor refused. I'm guessing this doctor is his friend because somehow he was able to convince this doctor to go ahead with performing an abortion on this unconscious girl without her consent. And eventually, the doctor agreed. And somewhere along the line in the process of aborting this pregnancy from Chioma's body, she began to lose blood. Complications began to happen and things became out of hand for the abortion doctor, which I believe must have been a quack doctor. It's very possible that, he most likely even brought the doctor to his house to do it rather than take her to the hospital, because there's a chance it would not have happened in the hospital. However, when things got out of hand with the doctor performing the abortion, the doctor suggested that he took her to another hospital, in which Pastor Emeka did. Pastor Emeka took her to another hospital and registered her name in another name, not with her name, registered her with another name. And it was in that hospital that Chioma was believed to have died. At this point, Pastor Emeka knew he was done for. He knew he had messed up. He knew this was God's way of punishing him for being stupid. And he immediately started looking for ways to cover it up. He called Chioma's parents and informed them that their daughter was sick and that she had died. But this came too sudden for them. They didn't know she had a very serious illness that would kill her so soon. They didn't know she was that sick, or if she was sick at all. All of a sudden, you're calling us to tell us she's dead. You didn't call us to tell us she was sick. You just called us to tell us she was sick and now she's dead. So this did not look believable for the girl's family. And luckily, or should I say unluckily for Pastor Emeka, these girls' parents were well-to-do and educated, and they had money, and they decided to conduct their own private autopsy for their daughter. They didn't want to stress it too much. They just said, okay, fine, she's dead. We're going to do the autopsy and we're going to see what happened to our daughter. It was during the autopsy that they discovered that drugs was in her system, a drug that may have caused her to be unconscious. And they also discovered that an abortion was attempted on her. And that was when all eyes turned to Pastor Emeka, who was like, okay, where was the sickness? Who laced her drink? Who tried to perform an abortion on her? What's going on here? At first, Emeka tried to make it look like she was in on it. Emeka tried to make it seem like Chioma wanted it also. But, apparently people who knew Chioma, or Chioma may have spoken to a few people about it, they knew the true story, that it was him who did not want the pregnancy and that Chioma wanted it. And that was when the story blew up in his face. And eventually, he admitted to it. They also knew things were sketchy the moment they went to the hospital to get their daughter's body and realized that she was not registered under her name, that another name was used on her, which meant that somebody was trying to cover up something. And that was how they knew Pastor Emeka was full of shit. Like the story goes, Emeka eventually admitted to drugging her and trying to perform an abortion on her because he was ashamed of what would happen or how the church would see him if his wife was pregnant before they got married. Wow. He was arrested and was getting ready to face charges. But for some reason, the family of Chioma had some kind of compassion for him. Maybe they did or maybe they did not, but this again boils down to their tradition. They gave Pastor Emeka the option. Do you want to go to jail for killing our daughter? Or do you want your freedom in exchange for you getting married to our daughter and making her a wife? After all, that was what you were planning on doing already. And obviously, like I said, in a case where the person is guilty of killing the deceased, it is a good option than to go to jail for most likely life in prison. Pastor Emeka took the option of making Chioma a wife on her funeral day. He did the rites, paid her bride price, paid her dowry, put the ring in her fingers as she laid in the coffin, and did what was right by getting married to her traditionally. And afterwards, she was buried. And in turn, he got his freedom. Posts and comments at the time of when the story came out suggested that Pastor Emeka is still free and still preaching the gospel and still being invited to churches. Clearly, his lessons from this tragic experience will become a point for preaching the gospel. I guess something like this would not tarnish his image, but make him more, relatable to the people, or make him more believable to the people. Because now it's been said that he was invited to numerous churches to book preaching and sermon, gigs. I don't know if that is something pastors book. But his life was not affected by it. He got his freedom after getting married to the dead girl. I still think he should have gone to jail. Unlike the other stories that we've done when it was, out of a fight, out of anger, there was a fight, or the lady slept and did not wake up. Those ones I can understand them getting their freedom. But this particular one was deliberately malicious, evil, stupid, and just pure wicked. And for the sake of other people, this man should not be walking free. I don't know why he got his freedom. I don't know why. And I'm sure in the video when I first made the story, I may have also expressed the same grievances as to why he got his damn freedom. Why? Why? Well, that is it. The family did not chase or press charges on him after he did the marital or marriage rites of the deceased woman. So it boils down to the same question. If you had to get married to a deceased person so that you don't go to jail, would you do so? Let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you think Pastor Emeka should have gone to jail regardless. Because I think he should have. I don't think he should be free. He shouldn't be free. There are people who are still in jail for crimes less worse than that. There are people who are in prison right now for killing someone in self-defense. There are people who are in prison for a crime they did not commit. And yet we have a man who deliberately drugged a woman, carried out an abortion without her consent, killed her and tried to cover it up. And now he's walking free, or because he got married to her eventually after a death. Nah, I don't think he should be walking free. He should get married to her and then still go to jail. That's my thoughts. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Now, our number one story of a man who got married to the dead. This one, to me, I made it number one because it's heartwarming and, a lot less tragic like the other stories we've done. And this happened in South Africa in 2018. So, a Durban man in South Africa got married to his fiancée the same day he buried her. Unlike the previous stories, this one is heartwarming. The 63-year-old man by the name of Jabulani Lugwani was said to have been dating his fiancée, who is also 63 years of age, and goes by the name Kuzwayo Sindiswa. And it was said that Sindiswa and Jabulani were dating since they were in high school, that they were high school sweethearts. They've been dating since they were teenagers. One of those high school crush that grew into something bigger. Obviously, after secondary school, they weren't exactly going to be together. They had to go about their lives. But eventually, they met again and the love rekindled. But somehow, some way, I don't know what had happened. Could have been financial reasons. They started living together as boyfriends and girlfriends. And eventually, what started off as just a mere relationship turned out to be a 20-year-long stay living together as partners. For over 20 years, Jabulani and Sindiswa lived together as a couple. They were not married legally, but they just started having children. They had 2 children and they also had grandchildren. But somehow, some way, they just didn't get married, and I don't even know why. However, it was said that Sindiswa really wanted to get married. It was her long life dream to actually walk down the aisle, wear a veil, and get married to the man of her dreams. But I want to guess maybe since they lived together, money might have been an issue, and also maybe the fact that they later started having children could also play a role in reducing or stalling the marital processes, because that would cost money, and children also cost money. So I can see them having children playing a role, them not being able to get married, and also maybe rent and other financial things that they may have faced. Another thing could be the fact that they really loved each other and they were already living together like husband and wife. So at the point, they may forget that they were not married because they were already living like a couple. They were already living like a family. So it may have not occurred to them that they still needed to get married. However, over time starts to go. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and before you know it, it was over 20 years already. They have had children and they have had grandchildren. In fact, somewhere along the line, Sindiswa developed diabetes, and this took a toll on her health, and she was even amputated on one of her legs. But the love was still there, and she was still vocal about wanting to get married. This even made Jabulani decide that he was going to get married to her. They fixed the date for June of 2018, somewhere in June of 2018, while she was still alive, and that they were going to get married on that day. Unfortunately, a week or two before the day, she passed from complications resulting from the diabetes. But Jubilani was still adamant in getting married to Sindiswa. She was dead now, but she really wanted it. So on her funeral day, he dressed up traditionally like a man who was ready to get married to his wife and put a ring in her fingers, wore her a veil, and did everything that he needed to do to make her a wife. And although many people reacted differently to this because some people criticized him for waiting this long, for waiting for her to die, he didn't care. It was something he wanted because it was something she wanted. And even though he had to do it when she was dead, he felt fulfilled that he did get married to the love of his life regardless. And despite the whole clapback and the whole scrutiny, he was happy he did what he did. Interestingly, there were people who supported him. There were people who were happy he did it. Some people were surprised that he did it. And it was an interesting thing for a lot of people. Personally, for me, I thought it was sweet. Even though, yes, the marriage was important, but these were high school sweethearts. They've been in love since they were children. So sometimes your soulmate is your soulmate. You don't even need to do all those rites. But it was important they did it because Sindiswa really wanted it. And in as much as it was too late for her and she didn't get to see it, I guess it would mean something that she got it even in her death. This is it, guys. These are the 5 people who got married to the dead. It's ironically interesting that these are all men who got married to women. I found it difficult to find a story of a woman who got married to a dead man, apart from the ones that get married to ghosts and get to find out later that their partners or husbands were actually ghosts. Other than that, it seems like it's mostly the men who gets married to the women after they die. And this is mostly for African stories. In the French society and in the Chinese society, a lot of women do propose to get married to their deceased loved ones. But this is it, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your story that touched you the most. And let me know if there's any other story of a man or a woman who got married to a deceased person that we did not talk about. Let me know if you've been close to any of these stories, if you've heard any of these, if you know people that have gotten married to deceased loved ones. Share your stories in the comment below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notification button so should there be any new video, you'll be the first to get notified. Thank you guys for watching.